We're always told that more choice is more freedom, right? The more options you have, the happier you'll be. But what if that's just not true? What if it's a lie? Today, we're going to dive into this really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea that flips everything we think we know on its head. It's called the paradox of choice.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. The last time you had to make a decision, even a tiny one, like what to watch on a streaming service tonight, did you feel totally empowered by all those choices? Or did you feel just a little bit overwhelmed? Our whole culture is screaming yes to more. But the real answer? Yeah, it's going to surprise you.
I mean, we all grew up with this, right? This core idea that freedom is choice, that having more things to pick from will just automatically make our lives better. And it seems like basic logic, doesn't it? But there's this wave of pretty startling research that suggests this fundamental belief we have, well, it might be completely, totally wrong. Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we've got to zoom in on our modern obsession with, well, more. We are literally drowning in a sea of abundance, and it's not just making our homes cluttered, it's actually changing how our brains are wired.
Just picture this for a second. You're in the supermarket and you're just staring at this wall, a wall of 100 different salad dressings. Or how about this one? You're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through a streaming service, completely paralyzed by how many choices there are, until, oops, it's too late to watch anything. That's our world. And it's all built on this really seductive promise that more is always, always better.
But what if that promise of more, is actually a double-edged sword? What if it has this hidden cost, this psychological trap that's making us less decisive and, believe it or not, less happy? Well, that, my friends, is the heart of the paradox of choice.
Okay, so let me tell you about this brilliant little experiment that just lays this whole paradox bare. So, am I in a grocery store? They set up a jam tasting booth. Super simple. One day, they put out a whopping 24 different flavors of jam. The next day, they put out just 6. Now, what do you think happened?
The results were, honestly, they were stunning. So the table with 24 jams, it got more people to stop and look, for sure. But the table with only 6 jams sold 10 times more. Let that sink in. A massive increase in choice led to a massive decrease in actual sales. People were literally paralyzed by all the options. And that, right there, is the paradox in a nutshell. It's our brains just going into overload. So instead of feeling all free and liberated by all these possibilities, we actually feel trapped. We get stressed out, we can't make a decision, and even when we finally do choose something, we're haunted by the ghosts of all the other options we didn't pick. So what's actually going on inside our heads, right? Why does this thing we all think is so wonderful, choice, so often turn into this source of anxiety and frustration? Let's peel back the layers here and really look at the psychology behind it all. Well, it turns out there are 3 main culprits behind this mental gridlock. You can think of them as the 3 villains in our decision-making story: analysis paralysis, anticipated regret, and escalating expectations. All right, first up, analysis paralysis. And I know you know this feeling. It's when you're like an hour deep into scrolling reviews for a new phone, your eyes are glazing over, and you just give up. You stick with your old cracked one. That is your brain literally short-circuiting from too much information. Then you've got its partner in crime, anticipated regret. This is that little nagging voice in your head, the what-if voice. With so many options out there, every yes to one thing feels like saying no to 1,000 other, maybe better things. And we get so scared of making the wrong choice that we just end up making no choice at all. And finally, our third villain is escalating expectations. So here's how this one works. If you've only got 2 choices, you just hope you pick the better one. Simple. But if you have 200 choices, suddenly you don't just hope for the better one, you expect perfection. And you end up comparing the thing you actually chose to this imaginary perfect fantasy version. And of course, the real thing always falls short. So is that it? Are we all just doomed to this endless cycle of paralysis and regret? Absolutely not. The key to breaking free from this whole mess is understanding that there are 2 totally different ways people go about making decisions. Now, as I explain these 2 types, I really want you to ask yourself a simple, honest question. Which one of these sounds like me? Okay, so first you've got the maximizer. Their mission, their life's purpose in that moment is to find the absolute, undisputed best.
They'll research for hours, compare every single feature, and just agonize over every little detail. And then you have this satisficer. Their goal isn't the best, it's good enough. They figure out their criteria, they find something that checks the boxes, and they move on. And here's the real kicker. Even though maximizers might sometimes end up with a slightly better thing objectively, the research is clear. Satisficers are almost always happier with their choice. And that brings us to this really powerful, maybe even life-changing idea, embracing the art of good enough. And let me be crystal clear here. This is not about lowering your standards. It's about raising your level of happiness. So, you ready to give it a try? Here's the game plan. Step 1. Set your criteria first. Before you even start looking, figure out your absolute must-haves. Step 2. Artificially limit your options. Just decide, I'm only going to look at 3 TVs, not 30. Step 3. Choose, not just browse. Once you find something that fits your criteria, pull the trigger. And finally, step 4. Practice gratitude for what you chose. Focus on how great your choice is, not on what might have been. Because the secret here, and this is really the whole point, is that becoming a satisficer isn't about settling for mediocrity. Not at all. It's about knowing your own standards so clearly that you have the freedom to just ignore all the extra noise. It's about finding the signal in the static. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Think about your life. From the really small stuff, like what to eat for dinner tonight, to the huge stuff, like where you want to build a life. Where could you trade the immense stress of finding the absolute best for the simple joy of just finding good enough? Seriously, think about it. The answer might just change everything.